This story is really two different stories in one. They are both set in Footscray Hospital on Christmas Eve 1979, when Dr. Alice is completing her intern year as a junior doctor. She's on a long shift which starts at 8 a.m. on Christmas Eve and stretches all day and all night to finish on Christmas night at 6 p.m. The first story is in the morning at the busy general clinic, and the second story is at night in the emergency section of Casualty. Listen right to the end to find out what happens. Christmas Eve, Footscray, December 24th, 1979. Monday morning, 8 a.m. Another heavy morning of patient consultations lay ahead of me, I'm thinking, as I entered the general clinic section of Casualty at the Footscray Hospital. It was nearly the end of my first year as a doctor. No reprieve from a mountain load of patients, however, even though it was Christmas Eve. There were a pile of files sitting there in the patient's waiting tray, and it was only 8:30 a.m. "Mrs. Newen?" I called out in the waiting room. Immediately, 9 people stood up. A young man and woman, 6 young children aged under 7 years, and the young woman was holding a baby. Come in, I said. "We haven't got many chairs, but Mrs. Newen, please sit down with your baby." I could see the parents could not understand what I was saying. "Would you like me to ring the telephone interpreter?" I asked. There was silence then. "No, my daughter, she understand," said the mother. I turned to the oldest child, who could not be more than 7 years old. "What is the problem with your mother?" I asked the girl. The young girl looked away shyly and then spoke to her mother in Vietnamese. This went on for quite a long time, and I'm sitting at my desk hoping someone will speak to me in English so I can help them. Finally, after about 10 minutes of non-stop chatter between both parents and the oldest child, she said to me, "Mum and Dad are worried that they have a lot of children and a new baby." "Oh," I said. "Are your parents using contraception?" The child looked vacant and said nothing. I rephrased things. "Are your parents doing anything at the moment to stop babies coming?" The girl turned to her parents and had further loud chatter in Vietnamese between her, both parents, and surprisingly, 2 of the other older children also chimed in. I couldn't understand any of their animated discussion that went on for at least another 5 to 10 minutes. Then the girl looked at me and said, "Yes, they are." "What are they using?" I asked again. "Is your mother taking the pill, for instance?" More chatter amongst the whole family. The girl replied, "Yes, they are taking the pill. Sometimes my mother takes it. Sometimes my father takes it. If my mother forgets, someone always takes it. But it doesn't work because more babies always come." "Oh, I see," I replied. Monday evening, 9 p.m. Christmas Eve in Casualty, and I was on all day and all night. During the evening, I was rostered to the emergency section of Casualty, where all the patients with life-threatening problems and accidents are seen. I thought I would be in for a quiet night, being Christmas Eve. All through my own childhood, Christmas Eve was a quiet night at home, watching carols by candlelight on the TV, and everyone going to bed relatively early, so they would wake up fresh for opening presents on Christmas Day. It's funny how we think everyone out there is having the same experience as us when we're young. This was our normal life. I was to find out on that Christmas Eve in Casualty at Footscray Hospital in the rough and tough western suburbs of Melbourne that many people did not experience the quiet and peaceful Christmas Eve that I was used to. From 9 p.m. onwards, they started coming in. The bashings and cuttings and chokings. I thought it would be men who were drunk and fighting that would be our patients that we admitted, but I was wrong. It was their wives and girlfriends. I had never seen such badly beaten and swollen faces that needed x-rays, cut bodies that needed suturing, broken ribs, suspected internal abdominal injuries. We were flat out all night. But the biggest surprises came the next morning. Christmas Day, 25th of December, 9 a.m. I was up in the ward at 9 a.m, writing up notes and looking at the bandaged patients in their beds, when who should come into the ward, one by one, with flowers and apology cards in hand, but their husbands and boyfriends. Each of the women, in turn, received their gifts and over the subsequent days were discharged home, back to the care of their so-called loving husbands. There was no further discussion. No one wanted to see a social worker or report anything. Silence prevailed. Until next time. That's the end of the story. Thanks for listening. This is one of the stories in my latest novel called 4 Ways to Die at Riverside Towers, which is available in paperback and e-book from Amazon and Kindle. I hope you have a relaxing day today with your loved ones.